Hart. I'm going to do another little installment on my S-12. I've got some work done today, so I thought I would share with you. We'll get started today with what I've done since the last episode of the S-12. I have got the battery box installed with all the hardware. I've got all the brakes bled and everything working good. I've got the primer installed, the new one, and the primer lines run. I installed a gasculator, pretty similar to the one on my S14, except this time I used the gasculator's instructions, and it says at the top of the gasculator there's a port that you can screw a fitting in to access for a primer fitting. I thought that was a great idea, so I did it. That's my facet fuel pump that I have not installed yet. That's next on my agenda. Please excuse the bungee net. That's what's holding the nose of the aircraft on right now while I'm doing all this work. Okay, if you come around to this side of the airplane, what I've done so far over here is I've added these exhaust gas temperature probes, and I've added these exhaust springs for the joints in the exhaust pipes. And that's pretty much it. I want to take a second to discuss the water cooling of this motor. What I got to talking to Rotax Rick, and we have determined there may be, or may not be for that matter, an issue with the way that the water cooling is plumbed on a RANS. Okay, you see this big loop of hose here that goes up here and around this way, and there's a filler neck up there that you use like a radiator cap. And then it comes down this hose and into this water pump here. It goes up through the cylinders, up into the head, and then on the other side of the motor, it comes out of the head here, and it goes back down to the radiator down below the plane. Potential issue is caused from this steam line right here. Now Rotax, when you quit running this motor, the hot head can continue to, without water being circulated, can form steam pockets. And that's why they call this a steam vent. And here is the steam vent fitting that Rotax puts on there. And that sends the air, when you start up, it blows the air up through this line and back into the filler neck. The issue is that this is the intake side of the water pump, and so you could potentially run air down into your water pump and cause a cavitation problem. And Rotax Rick's claiming that that is a problem. And so what he is suggesting I do, and after investigating it myself, Rotax does recommend that you put the expansion tank on the head side or the output side of the motor. So I'm going to use one of these little Rotax expansion tanks, and I'm going to get the 90-degree fitting that you can option. This one's just straight out here, this fitting, but you can get one that goes 90 degrees up. And I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to do away with this whole loop of hose over here and go straight into the water pump from the radiator. And that will eliminate any potential of air getting into that water pump impeller and causing a problem. Now, for you naysayers who say, yeah, there's a million RANS S-12s and S-14s and everything else flying with this setup and no one seems to be having any problems. Well, that may be true. But as Rotax Rick described to me, the most vulnerable part of the head on a 582 is an O-ring. If you have a pocket of air around that O-ring without water to cool it, it can fry that O-ring. And it may not fail immediately, it may take a while. And so then your engine fails and you blame Rick, or you blame somebody else, and it's a faulty installation. So I'm trying to point this out so that maybe it'll help somebody and they can do what I'm going to do, and that's rectify this before it ever becomes a problem, which is my intent. And if you want to use this information, great. I suggest you research it yourself and come to your own conclusions. And if anything I've said here is helpful, well then great. But you know, I'm not a master Rotax guy or anything like that. I'm just telling you what I'm doing on my plane. So if you follow what I'm doing and you burn your engine up, don't be mad at me. You need to still do your own research. Anyway, that's all for this time. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Everybody, this is Harmon Hart. I'm doing a supplemental video on the cooling system on the RANS S-12. I finally got that completed, and I'd like to show it to you in a separate video. So let me just flip this camera around. And so you can see right here, this is the tube that comes in from the radiator on the bottom of the S-12. I've got a 1-inch 45-degree copper fitting here, and it goes into the water pump, which is right here. Now before, that line would have traveled up here and around on top of the head, and then it would have looped back around here and come in this way. And this way it just does away with that big old loop and the possibility of getting air into your system. So let's go around to the other side again. And what I did here is where the line used to come straight out, and it would go right down here and to the radiator on the output side of the head. I've replaced the fitting that Rand's had here that was straight out to a 90-degree fitting, and it goes up with a little piece of 1-inch radiator hose to my Rotax expansion tank, and then it goes over here. This is a 1-inch 90-degree copper fitting, and then it goes straight down here, and this goes down under the plane to the radiator underneath. That's a proper cooling system. The steam tube, the steam vent now comes off the head, goes up here. I put a connection here so that I can have this clear tubing. Rotax Rick claims that, as you can see your coolant level here without ever having to take the cap off. And so that goes into the steam vent fitting here to the top of your reservoir, and then this line up here is an overflow. So if you get too hot, it blows the coolant out this hose and back down. I use the stock Rand's reservoir here. But that's my setup, and I hope y'all can take something away from this. Thank you. Hello YouTube, this is Harmon Hart. It's January 28, 2016. I want to catch you up on the latest progress on the S-12. I've got quite a bit done on it. I've been working really hard, so I'm just going to kind of hit you with the highlights of what I've got done since the last time. Okay, I've got all my cooling system redone. I've got the throttle cables ran for the throttles, and I've got all of the mechanical synchronization done. I've got the Key West voltage regulator wired. I've of course got the BRS parachute put in. I've got my antenna for my aircraft radio installed and the wires run. I've got the larger dash installed with most of my instrumentation, and I've got all my switches ran for the fuel pump and for the radios and the master solenoid switch. I've ran all the new tubing for my airspeed indicator and got all the primer lines run from the last time. Got battery cables ran, master solenoid in, fuse box in. Of course the hydraulic brakes are in and working fine. I've got the belly pan back on the machine again, so that part's done. The nose cone is resecured, and so the machine is starting to look whole. I've just got to put the uprights for the doors in and the doors back on to be complete with that. Now I took the seats off that other Rans that was donated to me because the fabric was in better shape. This one has a couple little tears in it, and I took them home and washed them, and I'm going to be exchanging those later. I've also got the fuel pump done and all the fuel line run, and I've got it all stubbed into this filter right here for where the wing tanks will dump into the system. So the wing tanks are going to come through this filter into the gasculator where it's filtered again. It's going to go down through that hose down to the electric fuel pump, and then it's going to go out there and up to the pneumatic fuel pump here. And then from there it's going to go through these two lines to the carburetors. This is the pulse line. It's ran. All the wires are hooked up for the magnetos, for the kill, for the tack. Everything is working. I also have the starter solenoid mounted and wired. and flyback diode installed. And that's, oh, I got my control sticks put in with push to talks. I've got that all wired and ran and ready for my radio. So I also installed this little voltmeter. Now it doesn't go there, I've just got it sit there. It's gonna, when this is all put back together, it's gonna end up going right there. But that's a little show chrome item. It's made for Goldwing motorcycles. It's got a clock, a timer, a voltmeter, and an outside air temperature gauge, and a ice warning indicator. It's got a lot of neat little things. It was about $14, so I'll enjoy that. I also opted for a second hour meter, and this hour meter is going to be for engine hours. So that's it for now. I'll catch up with y'all when I get some more done and get it put back together and keep you up to date. This is January the 28th, 2016. Hello YouTube, this is Harmon Hart. It's February 9th, 2016, so I'm giving you my latest update on the S-12 for those of you who are interested. I'm going to flip the camera around and show you what I did to the chassis real quick, and then we'll go to the wing. Okay, I've got my dash installed. Everything but the radio. I'm waiting on a power supply. I got my voltmeter in. Everything operates correctly. I've got also a 12-volt power supply here for a GPS to plug into, a cigarette lighter plug basically. And so I've got that done. I've also got the cylinder head temperature probes in up there, as you can see underneath the spark plugs. So my cylinder head temperature gauge should be correct. Now for the wings. This was the worst wing. It was a mess. Right over here, I had a big old dent in the leading edge of the wing, so I bought a new leading edge spar from Rand's. And then a guy gave me an airplane. He gave me that old derelict S-12 there. And it came with these old yellow and black wings and tail section and a tail boom and a few other parts. And the airplane was junk, but that's where I got my hydraulic brake set up from. And I robbed the trailing edge spar out of one of the wings, because the trailing edge spar, whatever he hit up here, caused it to bend down in that far corner. And there was a very slight bend in the trailing edge spar. And the reason I unskinned these was because the guy had just reskinned them, hadn't even put the wings back on, and the wind came up and knocked one of them over, and it landed on a pile of metal that was sticking up like this, and it just shredded the wing material. And he got pissed off, and that's why he sold it to me to begin with. He just got mad at it. So I took the skins off, and while I was doing that, I decided I was going to go through all the wings and do all the updates that Rand's recommend. So I'm going to go over a few of those with you. But first I'd like to tell you that these are the fiberglass gas tanks that come in the S-12s and the S-14s. And these are real easy to spot because they're gray. Gray fiberglass. And they're great unless you use ethanol fuel. If you use nothing but 100 low lead, these will be just fine. However, I'm not sure that's what I'm going to do. And I decided while I had the wings apart, I was going to go ahead and change those anyway. So I'm getting ready to install the tanks, and they go right here. But I had a lot of work to do changing the two spars. I changed basically the leading edge and trailing edge spar and everything in between. But one of the things I wanted to show you is this airworthiness directive. Now this airworthiness directive on the aileron bell crank gusset is this. This is the gusset right here, this piece of metal. And what Rand's tells you to do, since you don't have the material on already, is when you build it, is you put a pop rivet in there, because evidently this little flimsy gusset, if it gets in a bind, it can bow up and grab the bottom of this head of this bolt here, and your ailerons can become inoperative. So the fix is to take a tie wrap around that and tie wrap this piece here to the spar there, and so that keeps that from bowing. But if you're building it, you can simply put a pop rivet in there and it solves the problem. So while I had these apart, I did that. I'm going to also run the threads on this end all the way. Haven't done that yet because I want to do that when I'm rigging the wing on the plane, but there's an airworthiness directive about these push-pull tubes also. And basically what it is that one of them had come undone on a guy who didn't do it properly, and they want this ran down on these threads as far as you can get it and still be able to rig the airplane. So I'm going to do that as well. One of the other things I did was I switched to the Rand's S-12 XL style wires here. They go and triangulate the tips of the wing. Here's the other one. And they had tubes there, and there were tubes in mine, but when I called Rand's and asked why they switched to wires, they told me that they had opened up several wings and found the tubes broken, and they'd been flying around broken tubes, and it was no big deal. So they just decided to go with cable since everything was under tension anyway. So I upgraded to that as well. And so that's it for right now, but I do have this wing structure completed other than a fuel tank, which I'm going to work on doing in the next day or two, and then I'm going to start skinning the wings again. So that's it for now. It's February 9th. I'll catch y'all with another update shortly.